Hi, everyone, and welcome to an exciting pre-event interview with Girish Baliga, who is an engineering manager at Uber and chair at Presto Foundation. Girish, together with Team Mihan, who is a software engineer at Meta and chair at Presto Technical Steering Committee, will be presenting on the upcoming Data Innovation Summit on a topic of building a modern data architecture, Presto for the Open Data Lakehouse. Now, for many of you who have not heard about it, have not heard about Presto, the Presto Foundation is the organization that oversees the development of Presto open source. The members of Presto Foundation provide essential financial support for the collaborative development process, including tooling, infrastructure, and community conferences. I hope that I got that right, Girish.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Goran. By the way, thanks for the introduction. Nice to meet you. Yeah, so the Presto Foundation is an open source foundation under the auspices of the Linux Foundation. We are the foundation that manages Presto and a bunch of ecosystem projects around it. And you're right, it is funded through contributions from our members. And it is an open source foundation run like any other Linux foundation.
Perfect. Thank you very much for joining us this year on the summit. It will be a pleasure to actually hear your presentation. So when it comes to Presto, what are some of the key data engineering challenges that you are basically trying to tackle with the Presto Foundation, or what you are seeing today on the market?
Absolutely. So as you've probably seen through the industry trends, the volume of data that people are processing has been increasing all the time. And so the big cost that a lot of companies with all this data to process is in actually processing that data, right? So loading the data into some sort of a warehouse or some third-party system, and then paying a lot of money to run SQL queries or other transforms on that. So in this marketplace, Presto is an open source alternative. It's free to download. Anybody can download it from our website. And it is very powerful. It is used, the same software is used at huge companies like Meta, Uber, Twitter, and so forth. And all of us are using this at our scale to solve the same kind of problems that people in the industry are trying to solve. So I think that kind of places Presto at a very important intersection of data volume and requirement and applicability in the marketplace.
So we are hearing a lot about Open Data Lakehouse these days. Can you tell us more about it, about Presto, and how Presto is actually helping organizations in this area?
Absolutely. So if you rewind back to a few years, let's say about 10 years ago or so, most companies would have these custom data warehouses, right? And then they would, it would be third-party vendor provided, and then you would load all your data into that warehouse and run all your analytics on top of it, your SQL queries, reporting, all of that. And as the volume of data grew, because these warehouses were expensive and hard to use, people would just pick and choose some very critical data sets and put it in the warehouse for usage. But over time, a lot of valuable data got missed in this because of the curation factor, the copy factor, and all these other things. And so a new class of engines emerged, which could directly query the data as it was sitting in your data lake, right? And so increasingly, whatever functionality was only available in the warehouse is now available on top of the data lake itself using these analytical engines that can query data directly in place. So that is really at the heart of this concept of data lakehouse. So data lakehouse is essentially the idea that wherever you store your data, we can have engines query the data directly in there without additional transformation and loading and things like that.
All right. So why is Presto so important for the Open Data Lakehouse community? What is new with it?
Absolutely. So one of the big challenges that comes in when you move from a dedicated data warehouse to a data lakehouse is performance. So these warehouses are highly optimized. The data on them, the way they store the data, the way they expose the data to the users, it provides very good performance, right? And so unless you can provide a comparable performance on the data lake in this data lakehouse setup, users will not be very happy with the transition. And that's where Presto comes in, right? So Presto has been developed at Facebook and optimized at use at Uber, Twitter, and all of these internet scale companies. So you actually are able to get comparable performance with Presto because of its pedigree, because of the way it's been built and so forth. And the other thing is scale. So since we use it at a very large scale, think thousands of users, petabytes of data, hundreds of thousands of queries every day, right? At that scale, we are able to operate Presto. If it can work for us, it can work for pretty much anybody else in the industry. So because of that, I think Presto is very well positioned to become a very strong alternative to these old school data warehouses.
Understand. You yourself, you're coming from Uber, you're engineering manager there. Are you using Presto, and how are you using Presto in your organization?
Absolutely. So we have a very large deployment of Presto at Uber. We have about thousands of users who access Presto every week to do very critical operations during their daily job for Uber's businesses, right? So think about running daily, weekly, monthly reports about how our businesses are doing in various cities, building up reports that we need to share with our partners, with agencies, and so forth. So lots of work that needs to happen. Much of that happens on Presto. So we basically have, like I said, thousands of users run Presto queries to do analysis, run reports, and so forth. And we also have a dedicated team that works on Presto itself. So we have customized Presto for usage at Uber. We have our own formats that we use, Parquet specifically, but also ORC to some extent. We have specific needs. So our queries tend to be much more geospatial in nature. Uber, as you can imagine, is sort of like a local transportation focused company, right? And so we have specific requirements about the kind of data, the geospatial data, the kind of queries, all these geospatial operators and so forth that we have to optimize for. So those are the things that we have been able to customize Presto to, and also contribute back to open source through the foundational project. So that's kind of how we've used Presto at Uber.
Perfect. As we have a number of traditional enterprises actually attending the summit, and you mentioned that Presto can be used for many other companies. Do you believe that this is also can be useful for such companies that are actually right now transforming to becoming data-driven?
Absolutely. I think one of the big things that many companies will see, and this was also true to some extent at Uber, is that data is usually available in different silos, right? So you have lots of organizations and companies. Everybody has their own data lake or data warehouse or whatever. They have bits and pieces of data sitting all over. And one of the strengths of Presto is that from day one, it's been designed as what is called a federated engine. So what that means is Presto has connectors that can connect to wherever your data is sitting and read from there, and then combine all these data sets and give you a uniform set of results for a single query, right? So you write a traditional SQL query, and then the engine is able to suck in data from all over the place, join it, do the appropriate transforms, and give you combined results. And that is very valuable. I think with lots of companies coming in, they will see that the transition to a unified analytics system and platform will be much smoother with Presto.
Perfect. I believe it's a very important actually trend these days, because in the enterprise world, especially for those that are right now transforming, federated governance, federated data management is of highest importance and on top of their to-do list, so to say. Coming back to Presto Foundation from OSS perspective, can you share a little bit more about the foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Presto Foundation, as I mentioned earlier, is part of the Linux Foundation. So we have a very standard structure in the foundation. We have members who pay dues, which basically funds all the activities of the foundations. We are a nonprofit, so everything, all the contributions go into the operations. And then all the due-paying members are part of what we call a governing board. So this is the board of directors that basically administers the foundation, right? And I'm the chair of that board. So our main job is to make sure that the structure of the foundation, the way things are run, are basically per Linux standards and per the principles that we've set out. But the bulk of the actual technical work is done by a separate body called the Technical Steering Committee. So the Technical Steering Committee is very similar to a lot of similar organizations. Like, for instance, if you know about Apache projects, they have something called a PMC. So it's very similar to that. So they are responsible for the actual code, the repositories, making sure that the changes are reviewed before they get in. They set out the technical roadmap, make sure that appropriate things are prioritized, empower folks in the community, and so forth. And Tim Meehan, who you mentioned earlier, is the chair of the TSC, and he helps coordinate all the activities of the TSC. And then the third body in the foundation, real quick, the third body in the foundation is our outreach committee, which helps with outreach activities, setting up events, growing the community, and so forth. And Ali Leclerc is the chair of outreach committee from Ahana, and she's basically driving all of this open source outreach. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, impressive. No, I thought you were, that was the end. But so I see that you have a lot of, basically, you're working together, you're creating together, and you have also community conferences that you're organizing as a conference and organizer. That is super interesting for me. So do you have any upcoming events that are coming up?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we recently concluded our annual PrestoCon, which is our annual conference. So recordings are online, people can go see it. And we have an upcoming PrestoCon Day conference, which is our summer event. So I think that is going to be on June 7th. And there is free virtual registration, but if people want to attend in person, I think we'll share more details later. But this is like a day where we have tech talks from contributors in the community, as well as people can come in and network and meet other people in the community and talk to the main contributors, the TSC members, and so forth. So it's a great place to learn more about Presto and connect with people who build Presto.
Sounds impressive. We are looking forward to your presentation. I want to thank you today for this short interview as a snippet of what is supposed to come on 11th and 12th of May at the conference. So we are looking forward to see you there. And for everybody that has registered the summit, this is basically just a teaser of what will be presented during the day. Thank you so much, Girish, and I wish you a great day.
Thanks a lot, Goran. It was a pleasure talking to you, and see you all at the conference.
Thank you so much.